Hey friends, Jim here with Philly Fixed. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to find out what's the best impact driver on the market today in terms of power and speed. There's a lot that goes into choosing tools. There's ergonomics, there's size, things like that. But today we're mainly going to focus on speed and power. We've got the brand new for 2024 DCF850 from DeWalt, their new flagship XR model. We're going to throw in the old DCF850 for comparison. And then from our other brands, we've got Milwaukee, the Fuel Gen 4. We've got the Flex Quick Eject. We have the Kobalt XTR. This has been out for a while, always been a solid tool. We've got the Hercules Brushless. Now, I do need to disclose, Harbor Freight did send this to me when it was brand new. I actually never really did an in-depth video on it, so I'm glad to be testing it here. Of course, the results are going to be the results, but I do want to let you know that I didn't pay for this one. I did pay for the rest, though. We've got the Metabo HPT triple hammer 36 volt bolt, Gen 3, if you want to call it that. Now this is the Hikoki Japanese market version. That's why it's white and gold. In my experience, Japanese market impact drivers from Hikoki / Metabo HPT or Makita typically operate or perform about the same as the American counterparts. So if you get the green version of this, you should pretty much get the same performance. We've got the latest brushless model from Ridgid, which I'm going to read, R862312B. Yeah, because those model numbers are fun. We've got the Bosch Freak Gen 3. And finally, we've got the Makita XDT14. If you want to know why I'm using this rather than the TD173 or its new US equivalent that just came out in 2024, the XDT20, go back and watch my Makita impact driver video. I will put that linked below. But in my opinion, the XDT14 was the best all-around performer. So that's what we're using today. Talking about batteries, if a brand has stacked lithium, that's what I used. So that applies to Milwaukee. I used the 6 amp hour Forge. The Flex, I used the 6 amp hour Flex stacked lithium. And then DeWalt, they don't have a 6, they have the 5 amp hour power stack, so that's the closest I could do. For everybody else that doesn't have stacked lithium pouch cell batteries, I used an 8 amp hour 21700 cell battery, with the exception, of course, being Makita, because as you know, the LXT line, they're locked into their 18650 batteries because on their 36 volt tools that take 2 packs, you wouldn't be able to fit 21700 cell batteries in there. One thing I want to talk about is the testing. So we're going to do 3 4-inch deck screws and OSB, pretty standard test for the channel. What I'm excited about is a new test called the Racetrack, where we drive a 3/8 inch by 6 inch lag into some TimberTech advanced PVC decking. It used to be called TimberTech AZEC. The reason I'm using it is because I have a lot of these little scraps left from my deck project. And I'm going to put the data sheet on the screen. I won't dwell on this too long. You can do the nerdy math if you want. But basically, this has a density roughly equal to the lower end of hardwoods. So it's a little bit lower than oak. It's kind of in the same ballpark as a few other hardwoods. So I feel like it's a good mid-torque test. And we're going to use a counterbalanced weight on a ball bearing track with the impact driver on it. So even though pushing down harder on an impact driver will not speed up how fast it drives, I get a lot of comments about, oh, you were pushing harder on this or that or whatever. So to eliminate any possibility of human error, we're going to do it on that Racetrack into this stuff. And then, of course, we've got our nut busting test on the bolt and nut rig. And that's something where obviously you probably wouldn't do that in real life with an impact driver, but we want to try it out anyway because we want to stress these things. So I'm going to stop talking. Let's get to the testing.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Before we get to the Flex and the DeWalt, take a look at the Hercules and Ridgid versus the Milwaukee Gen 4. The performance is essentially the same here if you're driving typical deck screws. 0.2 seconds falls within what I would consider the margin of error on this test. Let's keep going. Taking a look at the results here, the Flex is in first place, followed closely by the DCF850, and honestly the top 5 up through the Hercules here, very close together. Up next, the DCF850, Kobalt XTR, and Metabo HPT, I would say are in the second tier. The Makita kind of on its own here. I never really understood the Bosch Freak series. You know, they bothered to engineer this impact driver with a hybrid 1/4-inch hex collet and 1/2-inch square drive, but then they never really gave it any power to do much. So next we got the Racetrack with a medium torque application into that PVC decking. Let's get to it. The DCF860 taking the lead in this medium torque test by about 1/2 a second over the Flex and the Milwaukee. The Hercules and Ridgid not keeping up with the top 3 like they were on the last test, with the Ridgid and Kobalt performing very similarly on this one. The DCF850, Metabo HPT, and Makita in the next tier. And the Bosch, still not the freak we were promised. As always, I'm going to get heat for this last test because you shouldn't do it with an impact driver. I don't have any fancy equipment, so I'll be torquing the nuts by hand with a torque adapter, shooting for plus or minus 2% of the desired torque. Each tool will get 10 seconds to break the nut free for scoring purposes, although I may give it some extra time just to see if it can break the nut free at all. And with that, let's bust some nuts. 303.3. Spoiler alert, the Bosch wasn't even able to do 300 foot-pounds. For the rest of the impact drivers, we're going to start at 350 foot-pounds. 351.1. This is from my Makita impacts video, link down below. The XDT14, able to break 350 here, but not able to do more than that. 350.3. .3 351.0. 400.9. 424.9. 350.2. 399. 428. 350.8. 'Let's try that again. 399.4. The Hercules saying no thank you here and timing out pretty quickly on this nut torque to 400 foot-pounds. He even did it to me once at 350. You know, with Harbor Freight providing a 5-year warranty on the brushless Hercules tools, it's probably not a bad idea for them to protect it against damage from improper use like this. 349.9. 399.7. 426.9. 452.9. 351.8. 400.1. 428.1. 450.7. 476.4. 351.3. 401.1. 352.6. 401.4. 425.7. 450.4. 'Kay. Timed out on me that time. I didn't stop. 450.2. 's on normal mode here. So it just seems like it's timing out right before it breaks. So I'm going to give it to it. You may disagree. 476.1. 'Wasn't sure how to handle this one. If you pause the clock for the timeout and then restart it, it did make it under 10 seconds. However, the fact that it timed out in the first place, you could make the argument that it doesn't count. We're going to keep going here, and I'm going to choose to count it. But if you don't want to count it, that's fine. We'll look at the scores at the end, and you can factor that in. 502.8. Okay, I've given the DeWalt enough mulligans here. It was over 10 seconds, so I'm not going to count the 500 foot-pounds, but impressive nonetheless that it was able to do it in about 12 seconds or so. Here are your nut-busting results. Again, you could argue that the DeWalt only made it to 425 since it did time out at 450 and 475, but if you count impacting time only, it managed to break the last two free in under 10 seconds, so I gave it to it. Regardless, way more torque than you should be using an impact driver for. Move up to an impact wrench for these applications. This is for infotainment purposes only. Here you can see a plot of the results of all three tests, the nut-busting torque on the y-axis and the sum of the deck screw and racetrack lag screw time combined on the x-axis. And here's my analysis. I've used the median, not the mean or the average, but the median score as the dividing line. The DCF850 Flex and Milwaukee are obviously the top-tier performers here in terms of torque and speed. I think for typical applications, though, the Hercules has a strong showing as probably my best value pick, closely followed by the Ridgid, especially considering the lifetime service agreement, which recently got a mail-in option for tool repairs. This chart might suggest that the rest, the Metabo, HBT, Makita, and DeWalt Atomic, maybe even the Kobalt, are bad tools, but I really don't think that's the case. I actually think everything's pretty good here. I use the Makita quite a bit myself. The Bosch, I would say, performs more like a DIY or value pro tool than it does a professional tool, and Bosch is really selling themselves as professional tools, and a lot of their other tools really are professional grade. I just think they need to do better with this impact driver. All right, guys, well, there you have it. I think it's clear that the DeWalt is definitely top tier impact driver, the new DCF860, right up there with the Flex and the Milwaukee Fuel Gen 4. I think those three are probably neck and neck for the #1 spot on the market today. If you're looking for good value, I really like the Hercules. I think you can get it, I think for $70 bare tool, but they almost always have it at Harbor Freight for like $97 with a 5 amp hour battery and a charger. That's not like a occasional coupon. I think that's a pretty standard price right now. I think the Ridgid's pretty good too. I know some people have had mixed reviews on their experiences with the lifetime service agreement. However, everything I've heard from people directly is that it's good. Sometimes it's a little bit slow, but especially now that you don't have to take the tool to a service center, you can mail it in and then they'll mail either the replacement or the repaired tool back to you, just like they've always done with the batteries. I think it's something to consider there. As far as ergonomics, this is just purely subjective on my part. I think the Metabo HPT and the Makita probably have the best ergonomics. The Bosch has good ergonomics as well, but the performance is just too subpar for it to really matter much. Anyway, those are my thoughts. What do you guys think? Put them in the comments below. Also, I'm going to talk a little bit about channel updates, so if you don't care about that, I'll see you on the next one. But if you're a returning subscriber, yeah, I really have not been posting often. I really only posted consistently back in 2021, right when I started the channel. I'll be honest with you, this was supposed to be a house projects channel. It wasn't going to be a tool review channel. I got those Flex 24-volt tools accidentally when they came out, and I took advantage of it, and it kind of went from there. So the point of all that being is the time that I could spend doing tool reviews, I'm working on my house. So I'm looking for your opinions. If you're a longtime subscriber, do you want to see those projects on this channel, or should I put them on a second channel called Old House Projects? Obviously, there are downsides to starting a new channel fresh, but I'm not sure that the YouTube algorithm is going to recommend home DIY repair projects to people who are watching tool reviews. It tends to be that much of a niche on YouTube where things are that granular, and I just don't know that the videos would do well on this channel, even though I don't post enough on this channel to really merit a second channel. So let me know your thoughts, but that's why, you know, I post like 4 videos a year because I'm just really busy. I also have a full-time job. I've also got a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. So, you know, but I like doing this. I wish I could post more. I will do my best to post more, but no promises. Anyway, I do appreciate you sticking around, watching the few videos I do post. God bless you guys. I'll see you on the next one.
Hello, I'm Jim Davis.